Hi, my name's Zoe and let's talk horror. So I asked a few of you what you would like to see me talk about, and a lot of people asked where my love for horror came from, and I thought that was a really good question to ask actually, because I guess you don't just suddenly wake up one day and have this immense love for horror. It does kind of stem from a few different things, and I think, for me it was not something that I loved immediately from when I was really young. I gradually got into it, and I think I actually got into horror perhaps a little bit later than a lot of other people that I know. Most people that I seem to talk to, they got into horror like at a ridiculously young age. I remember someone once saying to me that they watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre when they were like 3, which I actually believe is bullshit. But if you did watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre at 3, 1, I think that's child abuse, and 2, I don't even know how the fuck that would warp your mind, but perhaps you would grow up and absolutely love horror. But for me it was a lot more gradual. It wasn't like an immediate thing. So I mean it did start when I was young, but it was kind of like little hints that got more and more as I got older. The first occasion of horror coming into my life was perhaps the XFiles, and maybe it's not really classed as horror as such, but I think that was, it terrified the fuck out of me as a child, and I used to watch that with my dad. That was kind of my thing, and I always say that my dad is the person that got me into horror the most. He did really love horror, but so did my mum as well, so I guess I have my parents to blame for my love of horror. But yeah, we used to watch the X-Files together. I can't remember what age I was. I probably was quite young. I think I must have been over 5 though. I don't think my parents would have allowed me to watch the X-Files if I was under that age. And the reason they let me watch the X-Files was because I had a really big fascination for aliens. Me and my dad even once built this like 6-foot tall paper mache alien, which we lived in like quite a small flat, and we put that into our hallway. And I remember we built it when my mum was away, and when she came back she entered the door and she freaked out a bit because there was this giant green alien that we'd made. But I loved it. Like, that for me was kind of playing into my weird curiosity that I began to have around things of the supernatural, etc. What happened next was I discovered Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So I would honestly say that probably Buffy the Vampire Slayer is one of the most defining horror references that has ever come around in my life. I was quite young. I would probably say, I'm thinking from memory, I probably started watching around 7 or 8. And I think the reason my parents, because that to me, I still see that as quite young to be watching something like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because it is quite scary in places, and it has monsters and it has quite adult topics, so I think it's quite scary. And I think the reason that my parents were okay with me watching Buffy was because of the fact that it was led by a really strong female character, which for me, I was always a tomboy growing up. I always, I didn't want to do girly things. I didn't want to wear girly dresses. I wanted to hang out with the boys, not play football because I fucking hate football and I couldn't play sports when I was fat, so I didn't want to do those. But I wanted to go riding my bike. For instance, I had a BMX. All my other girlfriends, they had, pretty little pink bikes. There was me with a jet black BMX. I wanted stud bars so people could ride on the back. I wanted to do things that typically boys would do. So I was always a tomboy. So then when Buffy arrived, it was this incredible woman that was so badass, and she was kind of a tomboy, but at the same time she wasn't. She liked boys. She sometimes did dress nice, and she had her hair done, and I think it was the first instance for me where I could connect my femininity which I had, with the fact that I also wanted to be a tomboy, a kind of badass, I always presumed that you couldn't have both, that you were either completely a tomboy and, you know, you didn't ever wear a skirt or anything, or you were a girly girl and you wore skirts and you'd never, you know, like horror and things. So I really think that Buffy the Vampire Slayer was the, you know, like the TV show that showed to me that I could have both of those things, that I could grow up and be that kind of person. Obviously I don't fight demons, unfortunately no one came around and told me that I'm the Slayer, so I'm still kind of waiting, but it's fine. My dad did make me a stake, which I used to carry around in my my little purse that I had, which Maz, my good friend Maz Moss Photographic, can tell you all about that, because we used to play and she was never allowed to be Buffy, she was always Willow. So yeah, so Buffy came around, and then at the same time I was really getting into like paranormal stuff, which I'm not so much into now. I think I kind of grew out of that when I became more skeptical, and I had a few of my own experiences that to me kind of disproved the things that I wanted to believe in. But you know, that was also a fun journey that I've gone through as well. I used to go and stay with my grandma in Somerset quite a lot, and there was, whenever we went walking or around, there was always these little gift shops that had like little books about paranormal, you know, real ghost tales. I think they said that Exeter, was it Exeter or Exmouth, somewhere like that, one of the most haunted places in the UK, and I remember reading the stories of, you know, ghosts walking down the street and pubs where there's poltergeists and things like that, and I loved reading those when I was younger. Like, I think if I go back to my dad's house and I go in my childhood room, honestly, the shelves are full of these kind of true paranormal books. So alongside Buffy and that's where my love for, perhaps I didn't understand quite then that it was horror in a sense, but more, you know, spooky stuff that I knew that I was starting to get into. I liked the sense of fear, I liked the sense of being scared, and then I started to understand that those things were also in movies. It wasn't just books, it wasn't just Buffy, there was more and more of it. And for instance, I remembered that I saw this TV ad for, it might have even been like Most Haunted, to be honest, but it was for this late night TV show about scary, spooky stuff, and I was fucking adamant on watching that. I was like, Mum, that is the shit I want to be watching, and I need to see that. The problem was I was quite young, so I got really, really tired. So I said to my mum, I'm going to go to bed, but you are going to wake me up when this comes on. I mean, it probably came on at like, what, 11 p.m. So she said, okay, sure, you go to bed. I'm going to wake you up for that. Fab, sounds great. What happens? I wake up in the morning. Someone didn't wake me up to watch that show I really wanted to watch. I remember screaming at my mum. I was so angry at the audacity she had, the fact that she hadn't woken me up to watch this, what was going to be an awesome paranormal show. What I didn't know was she had taped it for me, because yes, we still had tapes back then. She taped it for me, and I did manage to watch it, and safe to say, it was shit. So there we go. I continued on with those things, and then it was time to move on to movies. So I can remember two of the first horror movies I ever saw. The first horror movie I ever saw was The Evil Dead, and that's probably why it's one of my favourite films. It holds a lot of nostalgia for me, and I think, you know, it is kind of, it's funny now. I watch it and I laugh and I see the humour in it, but when I watched it when I was younger, it was terrifying. I mean, the first film is still pretty terrifying, but I can see and pick up some of the kind of dark humour in it, whereas when I was younger I couldn't. So we watched it, it was me and my friend Sam and his younger sister Alice, and my parents always had Halloween parties, incredible Halloween parties, let's say that. And we decided that we were going to make our own movie, but before we made our own movie, we obviously had to watch a movie. So my dad said, you can choose one horror movie from the collection and you watch that. So we chose The Evil Dead because he had an amazing rubber Necronomicon case. So we decided to watch that, and yeah, it's safe to say that it shit all three of us up. I can't even remember how long it was that I didn't sleep. It was bloody terrifying. I think I might have even cried. But anyway, so that was the first horror film I watched, and I think as soon as I discovered what it felt like to have that enthralling feel of being terrified and fear, however nothing happening to you. That's the thing, you know, that's the beauty of horror, is you get to feel, and this has always been the reason that I love horror so much, is you get to feel an emotion which you don't typically get to feel every single day. That's the beauty of horror for me, is that feeling of, you know, excitement, however you're also scared. It's kind of being like it's like being an adrenaline junkie. When you go on a roller coaster, you get that kind of, you're terrified, that fear, you know, your heart's racing, you get the rush of blood to your head, everything seems a bit out of place, you might feel nauseous, you're on edge, you're tense. And I've always felt that you get that. Perhaps as we grow older and we watch more horror films, it you know, dies down a little bit, but that was, when I was discovering horror, that was such a sensation that I was like, I need more of this, I need to feel this, it makes me feel alive. And that was really, for me, what grabbed me, you know, about horror, and just made me so like, wow, this is incredible. And I think even after I saw The Evil Dead, it still wasn't another couple of years till I really got myself into horror. So I think the second film I remember watching after that was Ju-On, also known as The Grudge, and I remember watching that. Fucking hell, it's Jesus Christ, it's terrifying. American remake, not so much, but you know, it has her and Michelle Gellar in, so of course I watched that. But I watched the Japanese version, and I watched that with my parents, and I must have been about 15, 16, so a little bit older. And yeah, kicked my dad out of the bed that he shared with my mum, and I was like, I'm straight up sleeping in here for 3 weeks because fuck anything else, I'm terrified. And I think after then I progressively began to get more and more into it. And you know, anyone that already kind of knows me and follows me and the things that I'm into, you'll know that I really love my extreme horror. And how I got into extreme horror, and I found something really exciting actually today when I was redecorating the room here. The way I got into extreme horror was I started getting into found footage horror. I had a real thing for found footage, and I found it really exciting. And I was writing an article at university about found footage films and where the first found footage came from. You know, not horror specific, but just found footage films in general. And then I stumbled across Cannibal Holocaust. And this is really where everything changed. And that's why that film for me holds such a poignant kind of place in my heart, I guess, because it really changed my outlook on what horror could do to you. Because for me, horror was always the jump scares, you know, the oh gosh, that kind of fear. I didn't realise that there was something more visceral, more cerebral, that really got under your skin and kind of gnawed away at you for days. I didn't realise that horror existed out there. So as you can see, this was what I produced and wrote at university. And safe to say, they weren't particularly happy with this image going in the magazine that we were making. But this is a really important piece of work for me, because this was where my discovery of extreme came in, and it was from then that I really kind of just started Googling. I mean, I think that was how it was, you know, I just started Googling most disturbing films ever, was the most fucked up film ever made? You know, what films have made people sick? What films ruin people's lives? And went from there really, and I discovered some right good old things. And that was when I joined social media and I started following, you know, anyone that I could find that knew about horror, and I met some of the incredible people I know now on Twitter and in the horror industry, in the horror world, that I've known for a while now, who were the first people that I kind of went, hi, I'm new to horror, would you be interested in, you know, being friends and letting me know a bit more about what you know about horror. And that was kind of where it started. So, you know, I do a lot about extreme horror movies. I do my reviews, interviews, podcasts, videos now. But everything I know is self-taught. So, you know, sometimes I make mistakes because it's self-taught, and it's comes from having a passion and just really loving horror films and really loving extreme and what extreme horror films have that's so different to anything that I think kind of exists out there. And now, you know, I'm here where I am, and I get so excited still every time I'm talking about horror films or, you know, an extreme film. I still get that excitement and I still love watching them, and I think if that were to ever leave, I would be incredibly gutted, I guess. And I guess in terms of writing, is I've always come from a journalism background. So, you know, I studied journalism at college, I studied journalism at university, and that's meant that I've been fortunate enough to have a passion and have the knowledge to write about these movies. I mean, I set up a blog back in, I don't know, maybe 2013, maybe even earlier than that, I think maybe like 2011, and I called it The Film Fetishist. Strange one. Obviously now I'm Zobo with a shotgun because way fucking cooler. And I then was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to become the editor for the London Horror Society, which is why I have my t-shirt on that my friend bought me when we were at university, and I started doing that because she was like, that's, you know, really cool, and hopefully one day you progress with it. And yeah, it's just, that was my first opportunity, and now, you know, I'm writing for various places, doing lots of my own stuff, getting to connect with the most incredible other horror fans, horror critics, horror podcasters, YouTubers, you know, you name it, you're all out there. And yeah, it's just, I think, you know, my journey through horror has been such an incredible one. A lot of self-discovery as well came through that. Horror's really helped me through a lot of, you know, perhaps quite tough periods in my life. It is a form of escapism for me, and I do, you know, really love what it provides to me. And I hope, you know, that when I'm a little old 90-year-old that I'm still going, oh, should we rewatch Cannibal Holocaust one more time? Because that for me would be, if I don't still have that, then something went wrong along the way. But yeah, that's kind of my journey into horror and into extreme and into writing. But a few of you wanted to know a bit more about it, so I thought I would let you know a bit more about my journey into horror. I would of course love to hear your journey into horror, because I know that you all have one. So please, you know, leave a comment in the comments section. Also subscribe if you'd like to get more videos from me, and, you know, if you have any ideas for any film reviews you'd like to see, any movies you'd like me to watch for your pleasure, do let me know. Thanks for watching. Bye!